Hello students, a very good evening to all and welcome back to Daily Current Affairs. So today we shall be discussing some of the important topics of 8th of August. So these are the important topics which we shall be covering today. Let me change the color. So our first very important article would be, recently India has changed the names of around 27 places in Arunachal Pradesh. So in this article we shall be discussing that how India is reacting towards the different actions or different policies of China. Next important article is about a joint defense agreement between three countries, that is Pakistan, Saudi Arabia as well as Turkey. So some of the media, some of the news channels are saying that you can consider it as the Islamic NATO. So we shall be discussing what is the difference between NATO and this joint defense agreement. Next article is very important. This article is about India's first privately built engine. So we shall be discussing that what is the importance of this engine in the upcoming ISRO missions of India. And finally, next article is about the AI sentries. So we shall be discussing how AI sentries are being used nowadays to resolve the human as well as wildlife conflict. And finally, we shall be discussing the practice questions. So let's start with the first article. So the first article is, recently India has changed the names of around 27 places in Arunachal Pradesh. 27 places, you can consider it as the location or you can consider it as the geographical feature, like the rivers or the mountains or the lakes or some settlements. So recently India formally changed the names of those places. So here, why India has taken this decision? India has taken decision because what China is doing, repeatedly what China is doing, that China is changing or China is giving the Chinese names to these kind of locations. So see, as you already know that India and China have a conflict in the North India, that means in the Jammu Kashmir region as well as in the Northeast India also, right? So generally what China says that Arunachal Pradesh is part of Chinese territory because China considers Arunachal Pradesh as the part of southern Tibet. So that's why generally what China do, China repeatedly give these places in Arunachal Pradesh as the Chinese names to different mountains or rivers. So now India has said that Arunachal Pradesh is completely the territory of India, so no longer you can give those names. See, nothing will change on the ground, right? Because just if you are changing the name, nothing is going to change in reality. But it's just a method to assert your territorial position. Okay. So let's discuss that why China used to rename the places. Just now we discussed, right, that generally what China do in different regions in Arunachal Pradesh, to different features of Arunachal Pradesh, China generally give the standard Chinese names, that since these are our territory, these are our regions, so we can call them with any name we want. So what is the reason why China is doing this? So see, this is very important term. China is doing this so as to ensure the cartographic assertion or the cartographic warfare, right? Cartographic warfare means when you are trying to assert your territorial position through the maps. This is known as the cartographic warfare. So here what China says that Arunachal Pradesh is the part of Zangam. See, please look in the map. This is the complete map, and here is the conflict zone between India as well as China. So China says that this complete Arunachal Pradesh is a part of Zangam. Zangam means it is considered as the part of southern Tibet. But India says that Arunachal Pradesh is completely the territory of India. Okay, so here, so this is the reason that why repeatedly China give all these places in Arunachal Pradesh as the Chinese name. Now, what is the objective of China? Objective is to reinforce the territorial claims. Because see, as I discussed, that nothing is going to change on ground. But see, the thing is, if repeatedly you call those places with the Chinese names, repeatedly if you use Chinese names for these places in the official documents, so what will happen? It will strengthen your international narrative. That means if repeatedly you are using Chinese names for all these places, eventually all the countries will also accept these Chinese names. So what it is doing, it is giving you the global recognition. That's why China is doing all these things. But please remember, just because you have changed the name of any place, it is not going to change the sovereignty. That means at present the sovereignty on Arunachal Pradesh is of India. Even if China gives the Chinese names, it is not going to change anything on the ground. Now, yes, so what we were discussing, see, India and China have a territorial dispute, and that territorial dispute is happening around McMahon Line. So see, India accepts McMahon Line because McMahon Line was the boundary between Tibet as well as British India, right? So India accepts this line, but China ignores this line. China says no line kind of McMahon Line exists, and this complete Arunachal Pradesh is part of Chinese territory. Yes. Now let's discuss the India's response. So what was the India's response? So just now we discussed in context. So what India did, India officially named these 27 locations with the Indian names. So what are those some of the locations? Like some mountain passes, peaks, rivers, settlements, etc., etc. See, why India is doing this? What is the requirement for India to do all these things? Requirement is, see, Arunachal Pradesh act as a buffer zone between China as well as India, right? So this is a complete buffer zone. That means if Chinese military is trying to enter India, so before it is entering Arunachal Pradesh, we would be having some update so that our military can also be prepared. So because of that, Arunachal Pradesh act as a buffer zone between India and China. Next is because of the importance of Tawang Valley. See, somewhere here is the location. Okay, see clearly. Tawang Valley is located somewhere here, right? So at the intersection of Tibet as well as India. So here the importance of Tawang Valley same, that it also acts as a buffer zone between India and China, or India or southern Tibet. And second thing is the cultural importance of Tawang, because in Tawang Valley you have the Tawang monastery, and which is the important center of the Tibetan Buddhism. So because of all these things, Tawang Valley is also very important. So why it is important? Because it shares border with China. It also includes the Tawang region, and it forms part of India's eastern Himalayan frontier. Now, next important article is about the joint defense agreement between three countries, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia as well as Turkey. So, okay. Now, let's discuss why this agreement was signed. I think this we discussed that what is this agreement. So, this agreement is known as the Makkah Joint Defense Agreement. So, Makkah Joint Defense Agreement is signed between which three countries? This UPSC can ask in prelims, that is Pakistan, Saudi Arabia as well as Turkey. Now, what is the meaning of this Joint Defense Agreement? What is the meaning? What is the meaning of this agreement? Meaning is that if out of these three countries, if attack happens on one of these countries, so it will be considered as an attack on other two countries also. So the similar thing is with the NATO countries also. What happens in NATO countries? If you attack on one country, for example USA, so that would be considered as the attack on other NATO countries also. So same thing is happening here. But you cannot equate NATO as well as this defense cooperation. Okay. Now, so why was this agreement signed? What was the need for this agreement? So need for this agreement was the increasing regional disturbances or regional crisis in the West Asia. Right. So see, if you compare between NATO as well as this defense cooperation, so earlier why NATO was formed? NATO was formed against the Russia or against Soviet countries, right? But this agreement is not pointed towards any country. This agreement, the formation, why this agreement was signed, it has its own reasons. So what are the important reasons? First is the rising regional security challenges in the West Asia. So because of that, they need to strengthen the collective deterrence. They need to strengthen their defensive capabilities. These are the reasons why this defense agreement was signed. Now, why it is important? This we have to discuss. Why it is important? Because it constitutes three countries, right? Saudi Arabia, Pakistan as well as Turkey. If we talk about Saudi Arabia, so Saudi Arabia is the largest economy in the Arab world, right? Second thing is Saudi Arabia is the major exporter of oil, right? Next thing is its financial strength is also very, very strong. That's why this country can influence a lot of things in the nearby regions. So that's why this is the importance of Saudi Arabia in this agreement. Next coming the Turkey. So Turkey, first important thing about Turkey is that first it is NATO member, right? Next thing is the drone construction capabilities or the innovative defense capabilities are very strong in Turkey. So Turkey can ensure that this defense cooperation can be very, very strong. Next coming to Pakistan. If we talk about the Pakistan, so Pakistan have one of the largest standing military power in the world. Next thing is Pakistan is also a military power. So if we combine all the strength of all these three countries, they have very strong military capability, they have very strong defense capability, as well as they have very strong strategic influence. So see, now what can we discuss about this partnership with respect to India? So see, immediately India does not have any threat with respect to this partnership, because this agreement does not say that we are pointing towards any particular country. No, we are not pointing towards any particular country. We have our own reasons, for example crisis in the West Asia, so we have to strengthen our defense capabilities. But here important thing is, if we talk about the relation of India with these three countries, so Saudi Arabia is the major exporter of oil for India, right? If we talk about Turkey, so the relations of India and Turkey are not very good at present. And third, Pakistan is the neighbor of India, right? Pakistan is the major nuclear power, as well as the ties between India and Pakistan are also not very good, right? So now India has to see that immediately this cooperation is not affecting India, but now India has to see that how India has to deal with this kind of partnership, or what impact this partnership can have on India. Okay. Yes, if we quickly discuss about the difference between this partnership and NATO. So first important thing is that NATO can be considered as the large big partnership. Big partnership, why? Because it includes around 32 countries. But this can be considered only the regional partnership because it has only 3 countries. Next thing is, next important thing is that here this according to Article 5 of NATO, according to Article 5 of NATO, if a particular country is being attacked, it would be considered as the attack on other countries, and this thing is actually written in the treaty. But this is not a treaty based agreement, right? So here institutionalization or standardization is more, but here standardization is very, very less. Yes, this thing we already discussed, that the origin of NATO was because they wanted to point towards Russia, or for that matter the Soviet countries. But here this organization is not pointing towards any particular country. Yes. Now this is very important article. So this article is about the India's first privately built rocket engine. Okay. So here important thing is that this rocket engine is built by India's private organization. So this thing is very, very important, because generally rocket technologies are developed in India by ISRO. Why this is important? Because this rocket engine technology is built by India's private organization. Now what are the important features of this rocket? Important feature is that it is 800 kilonewton rocket with full flow staged combustion capability. Okay, and the combustion of this engine is using liquid oxygen and methane mixture. So all these things we will discuss line by line. And what is the importance of this technology? The importance is it will help us in the reusable launch vehicles. See, understand, if we talk about any rocket, so usually rockets have multiple stages, right? Usually rockets have multiple stages. So for example, if we talk about the first stage, so the role of the first stage is to lift the rocket from the ground, and the role of the upper stages is to take the payload to the final destination. So here mainly we will be discussing about the first stage, because mainly here we are talking about the combustion. That means the first stage, the importance of first stage is to lift the rocket from the ground. Now, generally what happens that these are the different stages of the rocket. So, when the rocket moves up in the atmosphere, over a period of time, different stages will be detached from the payload, and these all these stages will be coming back to the Earth's atmosphere, and when they are entering the Earth atmosphere, so generally they get burnt up, or generally they get destroyed, or generally they will be gone in the ocean or seas. So, here the problem is you cannot reuse all these things again. So, now India is trying to build the reusable launch vehicle technology so that these stages of rockets can come back and we can reuse them in other missions. So, this reusable launch vehicle technology can use this kind of privately developed rocket. Okay, so first of all, let's discuss the basic of the rocket engine. So see, what is the main purpose of rocket engine? What the rocket engine does? So basically what rocket engine does, that this rocket engine would be producing a thrust, right? This rocket engine would be producing a thrust, and this thrust or this force would be pushing rocket up from the ground. Now how this thrust is produced? This thrust is produced when the fuel as well as oxidizer is completely burnt. Right? This thrust will be produced when the fuel and oxidizer will be burnt. Now, in the context we discussed that this kind of engine is full flow staged combustion engine. So see, please understand, generally if we talk about different rocket engines, so generally what happens that to provide the initial thrust, as we discussed, to provide initial thrust, we need, what is the requirement, that fuel and oxidizer must burn. So what happens in the initial stage to provide the thrust, the fuel as well as oxidizer will be, this fuel and oxidizer will be entering the combustion chamber, right? So here they will be entering the combustion chamber. So what happens, most engines burn a small portion of the fuel only to run these pumps. So see, what will happen, see, these fuel and oxidizer have to enter the combustion chamber. In combustion chamber, this mixture will be burning. After burning, this mixture will be producing a thrust, right? Now, how this fuel and oxidizer would be entering the combustion chamber? So you will be needing a pump. So this pump would be pushing this fuel and oxidizer mixture to the combustion chamber. Generally what happens that only a small part of fuel and oxidizer is reaching a combustion chamber, and remaining mixture is unburnt. So because of that, high amount of thrust is not getting produced. Now what will happen in full flow staged combustion engine? All the fuel and all the oxidizer, it will be burnt in the combustion chamber. This is important thing. Because generally in engines what happens, only a small part of fuel and oxidizer mixture get burnt up, because of that small amount of thrust is produced. But in full flow staged combustion engine, complete mixture of fuel and oxidizer will be burnt, so high amount of thrust will be produced and efficiency of engine will be very high. But first of all, what will happen? First of all, they will be pre-burned. That means first of all they will be sent in the pre-combustion chamber, and after that they would be sent in the combustion chamber. So in this way complete mixture can be burnt easily. So why we call them full flow? Full flow means the entire mixture of fuel and oxidizer is being burnt. Staged combustion means, staged combustion meaning it's not like completely we put entire mixture directly in the combustion chamber. No. First we will ensure some part of the fuel, some part of the mixture is burnt. Then again that mixture would be burning again in the combustion chamber, so as to ensure that 100% mixture is burnt. That's why we call it as staged combustion. Now, what is the importance of this type of combustion? So, importance I just now discussed, that fuel efficiency will be very higher, right? And if the complete mixture is burning, then the amount of thrust and amount of pressure which is produced, it will be very high. And thrust is the main requirement for the rocket to move up, right? Because if we discuss about the Newton's third law of motion, which says every action has equal and opposite reaction, right? So if the thrust or pressure is very high, so these gases would be pushing with very high thrust and pressure towards the ground. So in return, again ground will be pushing this rocket towards in the higher levels of atmosphere. Understood? So here fuel efficiency will be high, chamber pressure will be high, thrust will be very, very high, and since complete fuel is burnt, so wear and tear will also be very, very low, and hence engine life will be high. Now, it's very important that what is the fuel used, because generally we use liquid oxygen as well as kerosene in rockets. But here we are using the mixture of liquid oxygen as well as methane. Because see, in rocket fuel, you would be needing two things. First is the main fuel, and second will be the oxidizer. Because of the oxidizer only that fuel will be burning. So oxidizer, here we are using liquid oxygen, but fuel, instead of kerosene, we are using methane. So please remember that liquid methane can also be used as a fuel in rocket. Now why we are using methane? We are using methane because burning of methane is more cleaner than burning of kerosene. Because generally when kerosene is burned, it produces soot. Soot is kind of black carbon particle. So it produces soot, and if soot is produced, lot of pollution will be produced or efficiency will not be very high. So why it is used? Because it is cleaner, it produces less soot, it causes less carbon deposition. Right? And if carbon deposition is very less, then the maintenance requirement will also be very, very less. Now, why this is important for India? Let's discuss this also. So, in the context only we discussed that this is important because it is the privately developed engine. Because we discussed already this, that mostly the efficient engines in India are developed by ISRO. But since this engine is developed by the private organization, so it will give boost to the in-space reforms, because the main purpose of in-space was to give boost to the private organizations in the space sector. Next thing is, since this engine can help the reusable vehicle technology, so in future India can adopt very good technologies related to reusable launch vehicles. Next thing is, it will give boost to Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, and next thing, it can promote the commercial launch services. So these are some of the importance. Oh, just a second. Yes. Now, this next article is related to AI-enabled sentry systems. So, what is the news? News is, recently, Kerala has begun deploying AI-enabled sentry systems so as to reduce the human-wildlife conflict. So, first of all, let's discuss what is sentry systems. Basically, sentry system means the surveillance or monitoring system, right? So here, AI-enabled sentry system means this surveillance or monitoring would be done through artificial intelligence. Why we are doing this surveillance? So that we can reduce the human as well as wildlife conflict. So yes, first of all, let's discuss about this basic, that what is human-wildlife conflict. So how human-wildlife conflict occurs. So see, generally what happens, whenever you try to expand your settlements, so when you are trying to expand your settlements, you would be entering the territory of forest, or you would be entering the territory of animals. So because of that, what happens, that wild animals would be trying to enter your settlements because you have encroached upon the forest territory. Next thing, they will try to attack your livestock, right? They will try to attack you, and in retaliation, human beings would be killing the animals or would be attacking animals. So because of all these things, human-wildlife conflict is happening. And especially if we talk about the state of Kerala, because since this state action is taken by Kerala, so in Kerala, mostly the conflict is between humans and animals, elephants, wild boars, tigers as well as leopards. Okay, so these are the main animals because of which human-animal conflict is taking place. Now, what is the reason why in these times human-wildlife conflict is increasing more and more? So, first important thing is the shrinking and fragmented habitat. See, as you know, that now the human settlements or human requirements are expanding, right? We need more land for agriculture, we need more land for the infrastructures, for example, railways or roadways. We need more land for building the factories, for building residential societies, etc., etc. So because of that, we are encroaching upon the territory of animals, and because of that, their habitat is shrinking. And since their habitat is shrinking, they will eventually try to enter the human settlements. Next is the food and water scarcity. Because of the food and water scarcity, generally these animals roam here and there out of the forest also, and in that also there can be human-animal conflict. Next is the climate change. Because of the climate change, the habitats of all these animals or habitat of wildlife is changing. And since the habitat is changing, the conflict between human and wildlife is very, very common. Now, yes, I think about the AI sentries we already discussed. What are sentries? Sentries are the surveillance system. If we talk about the AI sentries, so what will happen here? So basically what we are doing in AI sentries, we are trying to monitor the movement of wild animals, right? So here we will be using different kind of cameras, we will be using thermal sensors, we will be using motion sensors. So in that way, it would act as a kind of early warning system. Right, so we would be knowing few hours or we would be knowing few minutes before that wildlife, that an animal is going to approach. So we will be vacating that place. So here in the sentry system, what all things you will be using? AI-enabled cameras, thermal sensors, motion detectors, communication networks, etc., etc. So basically, it will act as a kind of early warning system. Now, let's discuss what is the difference between AI sentries and the normal cameras. So see, in normal CCTV camera, what you will do, normal CCTV camera will record the footage that this thing is happening, right? That's it. It will record the footage, and after the footage is recorded, you can view that footage. Nothing is going to happen. But if we talk about the AI sentry, so since there are thermal sensors, motion sensors, these sensors will detect the movement of wildlife. And if the movement of wildlife is detected, immediately early warning signal will be sent to the authorities. So in that way, we would be getting the signal and we will be vacating the place. So please pause the video and try to answer this question in the comment section. And this is the next question. Here also please pause the video, try to answer this question in the comment section. So that's all from my side for today. Thank you and have a nice day.